Well, this is an example of one very worn timing chain. I got the marks lined up on the old one, and watch this. And that's not even pulled tight on the other side. See that? If I pulled it all the way tight on one side, this would be even a lot looser. I'd say that's got about at least 12 to 15 degrees slack in there. So if you set the timing on 8 degrees, it would be 8 degrees advanced. It would be at least 4 degrees retarded. Now you could check this by turning the without pulling this all apart. If you take the distributor cap off and you turn the bottom, the harmonic balancer a little bit, so many degrees, and if the distributor doesn't move at all, that can give you an idea how much slack is in the chain. But I bought this Chevy El Camino back in 1991, and I never changed the timing chain. I know the engine was recently rebuilt back in 1991, but what the hell was that, 37 years ago? Or something like that, 27 years ago, excuse me. 27 years ago, right? So, and that's, 27 years use. I think it's about time for a new one. So, that's probably one of the problems I was having, not just with the worn cam lobes, but also you can actually, in other words, the ignition timing would get off from this too. But if you make up the ignition timing, then your valve timing's off. So it's got to be changed. It's a good thing it's a chain though, because if it was the timing belt probably would have broke a long time ago. And with these older cars, the one thing you got to watch for, this was replaced obviously when the engine was rebuilt, because for one, there's a pad on here. This pad, you can see this pad right here, that's where there's supposed to be a number for the engine. And this was milled down because the block was decked. So that was one of the reasons I never was able to determine that this was they told me it was a 350 when I bought it, but it's actually a 305. I got the casting number off the back of the block. But it's fine by me. I don't care if it's 350, 305, I don't care. It was rebuilt because this would have never been decked. The block would have never been decked. Plus the whole engine was painted and all that kind of garbage. But way back when, back in 1990 or 89 or something, the late 80s. So, but if you went ahead and just advanced your timing, that would be a temporary fix. But then if the chain skips a tooth, then you're screwed, right? The other side of it is usually this was a replacement gear set and chain. It's not a double roller, it's a stock one. But at least it's steel teeth on this upper gear. A lot of times the ones from the factory, they use nylon teeth on this upper cam gear. And okay, the chain might stretch, but you know what usually freaking screws up before the chain jumps or any problem with the chain? Chain usually doesn't break unless you're racing it or something. What happens is these nylon teeth come off and then the whole thing skips. But that had steel teeth on the gear, and this thing could probably run quite a bit longer, even though it wouldn't run that great. But I think when I put this cam in here, even though it's a stock cam, the stock cam is going to give it a lot more lift considering what was in here. Worn out lobes, rounded out lobes. It's going to be a lot better than rounded out lobes. And a new timing chain and gear set is going to bring this, it's going to get rid of all this slack. I mean, there's slack on both sides of this chain, a lot. I mean, it's going right up to the edge there. It's going right up to the block itself. That's a lot of slack. I'd say that's a good 15 degrees of slack in that jam chain. So, even if you're running it, I guess if you're running at 8 degrees, if you started out at 8 degrees advanced, which is probably about right timing. I mean, on a Chevy, a real mild Chevy would be 4 degrees advanced. Slightly not mild would be 8 degrees, and more like a slightly hopped up from the factory cam, not a real radical cam, would be about 12 degrees before top dead center advanced. But with that much slack in that chain, this thing would be running retarded as all hell. God, and that's where this thing probably is lacking some power, man. So it's going to seem like a new engine practically, just with a camshaft and this deal. So when it gets done, kind of taking my time because I'm painting all the parts and cleaning up everything real good. Like down here, this was the radiator support. It had a little surface rust on there. Chemically cleaned the crap out of it. Put rust killing primer on it. Then I put a coat of truck bed lining on it. So that's, one area of the car that rusts out. Radiator supports, you can't really get behind here too much. It gets a lot of debris from the road. Even though it's got holes in here, salt could collect up in here if you're up north. With that truck bed lining, stuff will hold up a really long time. So I'm just taking my time, but I'm glad I'm doing this job, because one thing I'm always squeamish about with timing chains or timing belts, they don't really give you any warning. It's like you're driving along, and another thing I don't like is a fuel pump can crap out on you and you're stranded. But a fuel pump isn't as bad as a timing chain or a timing belt breaking, because if your timing chain skips, you're going to do a valve job, and if it's a timing belt, you're probably you might have even a lot worse than bad valves in these modern cars. But in this thing, if that chain slipped really bad, probably wouldn't damage the pistons too much, but you probably would have some bent valves on these older ones, and it's a lot more freaking work, But it's a small engine, man. I mean, it's not that big a deal. It just yanked. I got the cherry picker thing and stuff. I could just yank this whole thing out, put a 350 in it, but I'm not going to do that. If I go, I'm gonna do this. This will be the only engine work I'm going to be doing for this. I'm going to put the clutch, good quality Zoom clutch, not the heavy duty spring with the not the heavy duty spring clutch, but the Zoom clutch with the right material in the clutch. New flywheel, a new pressure plate, new throw-out bearing, and pilot bearing, and also probably change the clutch arm. I'm going to have to watch it to get the right one, because I know some of the clutch arms from the aftermarket are screwed up, and probably change the rear seal or maybe the front seal in the transmission on a Saginaw. And I'm going to probably put I'm going to put a pair of springs in the back of this, because it sags in the back, and they're real easy to change. And just do some cosmetic stuff. I'm going to put new rugs in it and stuff like that, seat covers. Not going to spend a lot of money on it, just trying to make it look kind of neat and run better and better. But I just do one thing at a time, because I don't like tearing this whole thing apart and leaving it apart for 6 months. It's 2 or 3 weeks here and there that I use it. It's kind of how I work. So, but just want to point out, if you wanted to check this chain, what you would do is you put you might want to even do it with the spark plugs out, because the engine would turn a lot easier. You take the spark, it'd be probably simpler to just take the spark plugs out, because there's no compression. Take the spark plugs out and put, you have your harmonic balancer, and you got a bolt in there, a 5/8 bolt. Just put a wrench on there and move the engine back and forth. Take your distributor cap off and see, how much you got to move the engine back and forth for the rotor to move. Or you can mark the rotor if you're only one person and move it back and see, if the rotor moves or not and how many degrees it is. And you'll have on here, your top dead center mark on a harmonic balancer, and you'll also have the on the timing cover, the timing marks. So you can kind of like rotate it to 0 and go back and a few degrees and see if the rotor just moves, and then if it doesn't, and go a few more degrees. And if it takes like 12 degrees or more or something like that for the rotor to move up on the distributor, then this damn thing is really worn out and you got to change it. But if you have the original OEM, well, crap, I guess you wouldn't have an original OEM for a 70s car anymore. But back in the day when these cars were like newer, even if the chain was fairly tight, the one problem that you can have is with those nylon teeth on his top gear. They come off. They just get brittle and fall apart. And you know, chains usually don't break. It's usually those damn nylon teeth. So definitely, if you ever replace it, I mean, the aftermarket, I don't even know if they sell the ones, maybe from the dealers, but I definitely would not get an exact OEM cam gear, top gear with the nylon teeth, because they're stupid. I mean, the only reason they put those in the cars back in the day was to make them a little bit more quiet, and it's like I can't even tell the damn difference. I mean, there's so many other engine noises going on, you just can't tell. I mean, the fan is going spinning around because it's not an electric fan. It's got more noise than that top gear up there. So, but that's one of the stupid things they did from the factory. But that's one worn out chain. I'm glad I'm changing that sucker, man. Wow.